Hi everyone, welcome to Tales of Dread. I have one crazy episode for you today. First, we'll hear from a police officer in New Jersey who ran into a winged creature. Then we'll go to the deep woods of Ohio to hear one of the craziest Sasquatch stories I've ever heard, and then to West Virginia, where a family is being scared by something from above. Then we go to New Mexico and hear from someone in the Navajo Nation who had an unexpected visit from someone from another planet. But before we get to the stories, let me be the first to say welcome aboard if you've been listening for a long time but haven't yet signed up. Let's start the stories now. I never thought the same thing would happen to me. But last weekend I was on duty near the Pine Barrens near Egg Harbor City in Weymouth. My name is Tom, and I work for the New Jersey State Police. I like working out there because it's easy and the work I do isn't too hard. Catch a guy going too fast or get a few DUI. It's a lot easier to catch speeders here than it is to catch pimps and hookers in Atlantic City or Camden. Anyway, it was around 10:30 p.m. and I was waiting on the side of the road with the radar gun on to catch anyone going too fast. To be honest, I was getting pretty damn bored. When my shift was over, all I wanted to do was go home and sleep. Just then, I heard the weirdest sound I've ever heard. It was a strange mix of a hooting sound and a screeching sound. It sounded like the biggest owl you've ever heard. Then I saw a flash of something in front of my windshield. I was able to see these huge wings. I figured they were at least 10 feet across, and then I saw this thing's head. It was really, really strange. I'd say it looked like a goat. It had a long snout, evil-looking red eyes, and huge horns on top of its head. They had to be at least 12 inches long, and their heads looked like skeletons. The thing landed on the squad car's roof, and I could feel its weight making dents in the top. I got my gun and locked the door. I wanted to get out and shoot, but I felt like I couldn't move. In my life, I've seen a lot of things. I've seen serial killers, people who killed themselves, and meth addicts with no teeth left in their heads, but nothing like this. All I wanted was for it to be over. Then I heard glass breaking, and I looked back and saw that my back windshield is full of broken glass. There was a strong smell that I think they call sulfur or rotten eggs. Then I heard the flap of its wings and saw it fly into the headlights. The last thing I saw was its long tail. So, I'm sitting there trying to catch my breath, and I called the lieutenant and tried to explain what happened. I call and tell them, listen, you won't believe this. But I'm out in the Pine Barrens, and I think I just saw something. That's when he cuts me off. Okay, the lieutenant says you didn't see anything, but I told him, sir, I saw something strange. I think it was a Jersey devil, but he keeps cutting me off. You didn't see anything, okay. And if you keep doing this, you won't be a police officer anymore, you'll be fired. I have a 5-year-old son and a 3-year-old daughter, so I do have a family. I need this job to make money, so I just had to say, okay, sir. I'm sure that a lot of you out there think I'm a coward for doing that. But hey, what can you do? I don't know why I've been treated this way. Maybe it's a cover-up of some kind. All I can do is tell my story, and I promise that everything I say is true. Besides that, I was moved to only work in North Jersey the next day. I think they want me to stay out of the way now. Hey, Donovan. I love your show, and by sharing your wisdom, you're making the world a better place, brother. I believe in Bigfoot. If you don't, please tell me what it was that tried to kill me last summer. So, my mother lives in Ohio and just turned 70. I thought it would be a nice birthday present to fly down to see her. I should say that living deep in the woods on a lot of land was my mom's dream. She now lives in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by thick woods, and has no neighbors. I would sneak out at night after she went to bed to smoke a cigarette. If she knew I smoked, she'd kill me. One night, I went into the woods to smoke a cigarette and get some fresh air. Everything was going great until I got a whiff of the smell I've ever smelled that was the worst I've ever smelled in my life. It smelled like a wet dog, burned hair, and garbage from a week ago, but on steroids. I immediately got tears in my eyes. I turned on the flashlight on my phone because I thought my mom might be throwing trash into the woods. The smell kept getting worse and worse. I had to put my nose in my shirt, but that didn't help much. I was about to give up when I heard a huge thud next to me. I turned on my flashlight to see if it was a big animal, but it was just a big rock. I looked around, confused, to see where this thing could have come from. Before I could finish my thought, I heard a rock fall close to my head. I was really scared. So I ran in the direction from which the rock came and yelled some swear words as loudly as I could. I couldn't stand the smell, and before I could turn around, I saw this scary animal that looked like an ape. I saw that it had a face like a demonic caveman, beady eyes, a furry head, and a hairy body. I heard a huge, deep, bellowing growl that sounded like nothing I'd ever heard before. I ran as fast as I could in the direction of home. The sounds this thing made were horrible. I'll never forget how it growled as I ran away. I could hear it coming up behind me, and the sounds of its grunts as it ran still give me nightmares. I still broke through the front door, slammed it shut, and locked it behind me. As soon as I turned the key in the lock, the beast banged on the door. I was safe inside. It continued to pound on the door for seconds, shaking the whole house. I didn't know what I should do. I moved away from the door out of fear as it kept beating on it. My mom ran out of the bedroom yelling, "What the hell is that?" I couldn't say anything. I thought I was going to die. We started by getting tables, chairs, and other heavy items to block the front door. When the sound stopped, I felt a wave of relief rush through my body. Mom asked me again, "What the hell is that?" I didn't have the heart to tell her the truth. So I told her, "Mom, watch out for bears around here." As soon as I was done talking, I heard a loud crash from the side of the house. I got a kitchen knife and went to the sound, where I hoped I wouldn't have to use it. The animal kept hitting the house. "Where's Dad's shotgun?" I asked Mom in a panic, and she stood still. Before he died, my dad was a big hunter, but my mom had never touched a gun in her life. As the walls kept getting hit, I grabbed her by the shoulders and said, "Mom, this is life or death. I don't know where Dad's shotgun is." She said, "I don't know. Maybe it's under the bed. I don't know." I ran into her room and started pulling everything out from under her bed because it was my last chance. I got rid of a box, a sewing machine, some old yearbooks, my lacrosse trophies, and a bunch of other junk. When I finally touched the shotgun barrel, it was cold. I didn't even check to see if it was loaded. I ran right back into the living room, where this thing was going strong, and all of a sudden, there was silence. The house was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. I could hear the wind howling outside and the trees rustling, but no more bashing. I slowly slipped out the back door with my shotgun ready and snuck around to the side of the house. I tried to be as quiet as I could by moving slowly and not breathing. As I turned the corner, I could feel my heart beating faster. I couldn't see much outside because it was dark. I went to where the creature was attacking and saw that the house had been torn apart. There was trash all over the yard and pieces of wood had been ripped off the house. Big holes were made, and you could start to see a dim light coming from inside the house. If it had kept going like this, it would have broken through the wall in a few minutes. The next thing I knew, I heard a scary, angry roar coming from behind me. I turned around and saw the beast running at me. Its huge, lumbering arms were moving its huge body at a very fast rate. I closed my eyes and braced myself for the impact as I fired a shot. I heard the dirt fly as the creature stopped hard. "Now, be quiet." I fired another shot and heard this strange whooping from the large 8. He went into the force so quickly that I could hardly see him. I stayed outside and listened to his big footsteps until they faded into the night. Then I went back inside, leaving my mom shaking with fear. She asked, "Is it dead?" I told her to be careful about leaving food out near the bear's mother and went into the guest bedroom. I shut the door and fell to the floor. I thought about how close we were to dying and wondered if it was Bigfoot. If you ask me, I don't know what else it could be. I've been a fan of your show for a long time, Donovan. I didn't believe in the supernatural until this strange thing happened to me that changed my life for good. I was raised as a strict Catholic in West Virginia, so I was always a hard skeptic. That changed one night when my family and I were camping in the woods. It was around 10 p.m. and completely dark outside. Around the campfire, we were all eating steaks that my dad had just cooked. My cousin Jimmy asked, "Did you hear that?" We all stopped and listened carefully, but we couldn't hear anything. Jimmy kept saying he heard something, so my dad said we should go look for it. Everyone got their flashlights and we went into the woods. The more we walked, the more uneasy I felt. I had a strong feeling that something was watching us, but I refused to believe it was anything but my imagination and Jimmy's paranoia. We could hear all 3 of our feet crunching through the leaves as we walked through the woods. There were no sounds of bugs or animals. It was very quiet. We had been walking for about 10 minutes when all of a sudden, from above us, we heard a loud screeching sound. The sound of the scream was so scary that it made my skin crawl. It sounded like nails on a chalkboard, and a lion roaring together. It gave me chills and made all the hair on my body stand on end. We all looked up and saw a big animal flying right over us. This animal was very big. I mean someone who is easily 5 or 6 feet tall. It had big, red eyes that reflected light and almost looked like they were on fire, and its wingspan was huge. I can only compare it to the leathery, veiny wings of a huge bat that flapped with a thunderous clap. It was covered from head to tail with thick black feathers. I was so scared I couldn't even believe what I was seeing. Everyone in my family was just as scared as I was, and we all ran away screaming. Except for a small circle of light, the woods were dense and dark. Every rustle of leaves or snap of a branch was picked up by my flashlight. This made me jump and made my heart beat faster. I could hear my dad's breathing in Jimmy's steps in front of me, but I felt completely alone in the dark. I was crying, praying, and running as fast as I could to stay alive. I tripped over a branch and hurt my ankle when I fell to the ground. Along the way, I heard my dad and Jimmy yell, "Help! Run faster, go!" I broke my flashlight and had to use my family's screams to find my way home. I tried to yell for help, but they were too far ahead of me, and screaming too loudly for me to be heard. Finally, my dad started calling for me, and I started to yell loud enough for him to come look for me. I heard the beast's wings flapping behind me as I saw his flashlight shining through the trees. I knew I had to leave. I ran toward Dad's flashlight, clenching my teeth as hard as I could to deal with the pain of my twisted ankle. When I finally got to my dad, he started yelling, "Go, go, go." I heard a loud screeching noise, and then something big crashed through the trees toward us. Dad grabbed my hand, and we ran even faster, but I could feel the thing getting closer. Even though my ankle hurt a lot, I wanted to get away from the creature much more. Ahead, the trees were getting smaller, and I could see the campsite. We were almost there when my dad suddenly pulled me back. We hid behind a tree as the creature flew above. Its wingspan was at least 10 feet, and it screeched so loudly that I thought my ears were going to bleed. When we finally got back to the campsite, we were all shaking and crying from fear and relief. That night is burned into my mind, and I'll never forget how scared I was. We immediately packed up and drove home. There was no way we were staying in those woods any longer. My family and I tried to explain away what we saw all night, but we all saw the same thing. We were scared to death, and I'm still not sure what it was. It wasn't an alien or a demon. We didn't hear about the Mothman's red eyes, bat wings and body, and human-like arms and legs until much later. Could the thing that scared us so much have been a Mothman? I was no longer a skeptic and started to believe in the supernatural. I had seen the Mothman for myself, so I knew he existed. When I looked up the legend of the Mothman online, I found that many people had seen him in West Virginia. He kept going back to that area for no clear reason. I found out later that the Mothman is often linked to death and bad luck. In 1966, 46 people died when a bridge in West Virginia fell down. Some people think that the Mothman caused the bridge to fall down, and he was a sign that bad things were about to happen. I don't know if that's true or not, but I do know that it's a scary creature. Since I saw it, I've had dreams where it flew over me, and its glowing eyes are burned into my mind. It's become a permanent part of my life, and when I'm camping or driving through West Virginia, I'm always on the lookout for it. I don't want to see that again, but I can't help but be curious about it. It's a puzzle I'll never be able to solve, but it's changed me for good. I'm writing to you from the Navajo Nation in New Mexico, close to where Arizona meets New Mexico. As a Navajo, I felt like I had to tell my story and talk about the amazing thing I saw last night. We've always loved the world and all it has to offer. Even the simplest things can be beautiful to us. When it rains, we honor the animals we hunt and enjoy the water because it helps the plants grow again. And we've always been amazed when we looked up at the night sky. Last night, something amazing happened in the sky that I will never forget. As long as I live, I will never forget that we were outside doing a ceremony to heal a tribal elder with lung cancer. We were singing and dancing, and it was getting late. Suddenly, the sky got very bright, like the sun. At noon, we saw a round, circular ship that looked like it was falling straight to Earth, but it landed in a way that seemed to defy gravity. We heard a loud buzzing sound coming from the ship, and then the doors opened and people walked out. What can only be called an alien or, as I've heard it called, one of the Greys. It was short and off-white, and its eyes were big and black, like those of a fly. In the night, we all stood still. One of the tribe's young men tried to run forward with his bow to protect the tribe, but when the alien looked at him, he froze and dropped his bow. In my mind, I thought about the stories about what happened in Roswell, like how a spaceship from outer space crashed, but the wreckage was taken away and never seen again. As my thoughts raced, I knew that we were now seeing one of them alive. I had the feeling that the Grey could hear my thoughts. It started putting its own thoughts in my head and talking to me without saying a word. It told me stories about how they built the Egyptian pyramids, but people got the credit for it. The alien slowly walked back and forth as he looked at us. We could smell something strong and earthy with a hint of sulfur. It smelled like it came from a different planet than Earth. I then used my thoughts to tell the alien that we were Navajo. We don't live like modern people do, and we don't abuse the Earth. I told him that his problems were not ours and that we had been invaded before. But this is now our land, our reservation, and we want you to leave us alone. The Grey spoke to me again through telepathy and told me it understood. It said that it would attack the big cities where nuclear weapons are made by people. It said that soon, the world would be destroyed in a way that had never happened before. The animal then turned around and walked back onto the ship. It walked like a small child, with short legs and small steps. The door shut, and the ship took off, flying high above the stars. The alien was gone in an instant. I hope it never comes back and that what it said doesn't come true.